The thing that I'm just wondering is, am I living my life by default or by design? Where I really feel like I'm just kind of living my life on default is just what I'm doing with my time. In a lot of ways, there's just this lack of fulfillment. And, I've had to wrestle with that quite a bit. Just understanding like what does it mean to be fulfilled, and where does the lack of fulfillment come from, and is it wrong to feel a lack of fulfillment? And kind of what I've learned and wrestled with, and what I've heard others describe the fulfillment issue with work especially, is that there is a gap between what you value and what you find yourself doing with your time. And so, man, what I value most is creating, building, stewardship, being with my family, working with my hands, showing my kids how to do those things. I mean, just the other day, I was teaching my son how to create pocket holes to make this bench, actually. So my son did the pocket holes on this bench. And, as I'm just kind of watching him, I'm just like, man, like, I could see myself doing this every day, And so I think that's just the struggle for me, is just like, I leave this home every single morning to go sit at a desk. And I think that's the value proposition that's lacking in my life of, okay, like, what I really value most is creating. What I really value most is not missing the little years. And I'm, for the most part, missing the little years to sit at a desk all day. So that's kind of what I mean by just living my life on default, is that you work, you pay your bills, and you wait for the weekend. And man, you get into that cycle of constantly doing that. I'm just waiting for the weekend. I'm just waiting for the weekend. I'm just waiting for the weekend. And you find that so much time has passed, and you've basically just kind of put your life on autopilot, And that's just that's where I feel like I'm at, is like, my life feels like it's just on autopilot, with the occasional take back control, which tends to only fall on the weekends. And, there's some weeknights where, maybe we'll take the kids to the park, or maybe we'll go out to eat as a family, and all these things. But when you think about it, more than 85% of my week is spent not doing those things. And so I'm just struck with, am I living my life with intention, or am I living my life by default? What you're supposed to do is go to work, pay your bills, wait for the weekend. Go to work, pay your bills, wait for the weekend. But isn't there so much more to life than that? Than living your life on this default autopilot mode of go to work, pay your bills, wait for the weekend. Am I missing something? Because we all do it, and I'm not trying to run away from responsibility. I understand that, especially as a father of 5 children, a wife to provide for, a home to care for, that I can't forsake my responsibility. But what if responsibility doesn't have to look like go to work, wait for the weekend. That's the tension that I'm struggling with. It's never been me wanting to stay home all day and sit on the couch eating potato chips and being lazy. Like it's never been that. And the proof is in the pudding, really, because that's not what I do typically on the weekends. On the weekends, we're managing our photography business. We're building benches to sell, to help pay off debt. And so it's never been a matter of, can you work hard? Can you do the work that's necessary to provide for your family? Like, that's never been the question. The question that I'm wrestling with is the work that I'm doing the right work? Because what it feels like is I'm putting my life on pause Monday through Friday for 8 hours a day to really build the life that I don't necessarily want. And so that's more along the lines of what I meant by feeling like I'm just living someone else's life, living someone else's dream. I'm not, throwing shade at the Monday through Friday corporate office grind. I think, obviously there's a need for that, and people thrive in those types of environments, and they love that type of work, and there's genuinely fulfillment from doing that type of work. But I'm speaking more for myself that I don't feel that desire. My desire is entrepreneurship and creating, and that's where I thrive. So that's just where my heart is struggling. And what makes it more difficult is that this is not a concept that's easily understood. It requires a little bit of explanation. Not everyone understands this thought process of, so you're telling me you want to quit your job when you've got a lot of people to provide for. I mean, maybe it's genuinely in my head, but, for the most part, I have conversations like this with people, and my immediate thought is they think I am an absolute lunatic. If you would have come to me with the same thought process that I'm having right now 3.5 years ago, I would have thought you were crazy too. But I believe that there is a way. I believe that there is a better way to not only maintain the work-life, family-life balance, but, just a better way to just manage your work and manage your time. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit distracted. I'm trying to make sure in my multitasking I'm not screwing up this bench. I've heard it said best that, I'm not quitting my job, or I'm not wanting to quit my job. I'm wanting to replace it. So, because I believe that there is a better way to do this work life, family life, I'm just looking at every avenue possible to replace income. Especially because for a majority of my day, it feels like what I feel like God has given me as legitimate talent, what God has given me as legitimate gifts to be stewarded, my day-to-day really does feel like I am putting all of these gifts on the shelf to never be stewarded. That's genuinely, legitimately what it feels like, is that I'm putting the gifts that I've been given on a shelf when my heart and my mind all that it wants to do is put it to work, you know? Like that's a really hard feeling, man. It really is. There was a season where we were working really hard for photography to be our full-time gig. You know, it was nearly weddings every single weekend. And we were just envisioning that kind of life. And for a year or two, it looked very doable, right? Like we made close to 80 grand one year on photography alone. And, you know, at the time when I was working a retail job at the same time, that was double what I was making at my retail job. And so for a year, it felt like, okay, this might be the direction we end up going. And, you know, things kind of plummeted a little bit, and, you know, we were just having a hard time managing our money. And, you know, I'll take full blame for that. We didn't manage our money in the best way possible, and I think that is what really kept us from being able to make that leap. And I think there was just some business decisions also that I didn't steward well. And, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, right? You know, got a little bit of hindsight bias that says, oh, you know, you should have done X, Y, Z, but in the moment, I didn't know what I didn't know. So here we are now, looking back on some of those decisions, and we're like, okay, well, what are we going to do now? So I think that's the way to handle any type of life situations that feel like, oh, if only I would have made this decision, things would look a lot differently now. Well, there's nothing you can do about it. So you move on and you make the most of what you have now. Yeah, there was a while where we just were working towards having our business be the thing, our photography business be the thing. And it looked very likely. And the moment that it stopped looking likely was the moment where I was looking at finishing my college degree, working towards getting that desk job, because that's just what you're supposed to do. You've got a family to provide for. You've got responsibilities. You got bills to pay. It's time to stop dreaming. You know, it's time to put those creative gifts on the shelf for a little bit to do what you need to do. And I think there's a level of maturity it requires to do that, for the most part, as long as it's not coming from a place of fear. But yeah, we kind of just got to the point where we were asking ourselves, okay, what do we do next? What do we do now? We've got this debt that we have to pay, and we're not making enough money to cover some of our necessary expenses. So what do we do? Problem solving starts becoming a skill that you exercise at that point, because I was just kind of working through, okay, what do I need to do to take care of my family? So, you know, our website for our photography business was really old. It was, at this point, this would have been in 2023. Our website would have been about 4 years old at that point. And it was just time for not only a rebrand, but it was just time for a cleaner look and just another breath of fresh air for our business. And I think updating our website gave our business that breath of fresh air that it needed to kind of take a new direction. And so we stopped doing as many weddings and started focusing on serving families. Yeah, there was just a conversation that I was having with someone or a couple of people, just kind of advising on, you know, what are our next steps to paying our bills, and what are our next steps to getting out of debt. You know, we did the whole shebang, right? Like all right, let's look at your credit cards, let's see how much they're worth, and let's look and see see how much the interest rate is, like all the things that you would typically do to try to start figuring out your plan of action. Like, what's your plan to pay this off? And it had come up in conversation that, you need to quit photography. You need to quit working on the website. You need to quit trying to build this dream and get another job, do DoorDash, go work at Kroger, whatever. I respected that perspective, but at the same time, I was struggling with it because I was like, okay, not only, obviously my pride was a little bit hurt because our photography business is our bread and butter. It's our pride and joy. It's what I love doing. And like I said, there's a level of maturity that you tend to need to have to say, okay, I'm going to put this on the back burner for a season. When you make that decision, how you make that decision, that's entirely between you and the Lord. And like, you have to kind of come to grips with that. I don't think there's a right answer all the time. I think there's just all right, Lord, we're going to trust you with this. And we didn't quit photography. That's not the tension that I'm trying to create. We did not quit photography. But what we did do was not take that advice. Because our struggle was, okay, I can quit photography, which at that point we had already had some established contracts that we needed to fulfill. Like, we had a couple weddings that were coming up the next year. And so to just say we're going to quit, like, that wasn't feasible. Like, that's just not feasible because we're under contract. Like, we have to do this work, Let's say we've satisfied these contracts. Then what? Right? Do I replace that with a job that won't pay nearly as much as our photography gigs, like nearly as much, and I leave the home for not only my full-time job, but now I'm working maybe one or two other jobs, and now my wife is at home for not 8 hours a day by herself, taking care, at the time, our 4 kids, but she's now home for 16 hours a day by herself, taking care of our 4 kids. And so that was the decision that we had to wrestle with. And I think it was a very easy decision. And this is why I think there's not always a right answer, because we said we're going to trust the Lord with this. And what ended up happening was 100% unexpected. Because not only did I not take the advice that we were given, which came from a good place, and we respect that conversation that we had, it came from a place of genuine care for us and our family. But we continued with our website. I continued working on it. I was very close to the end. I was very close to getting it done and getting it published. And so it just, at the time, like, we had come too far to just stop. And so it just didn't make sense to just stop at that point, to be 90% done with something and say, okay, I'm just going to quit here. Like, that just, the logic behind that just makes zero sense. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to finish this. I'm going to see what happens when we're done. I'm glad I finished. So I continued our website, and just to kind of gain some traction and try to get people visiting the website, my wife and I, because we do this together, my wife and I, we ran a promotion or a deal or whatever, where we were just giving away free photos for a year to one lucky family. We had 70 families enter that giveaway. And, over the course of about a week or so, I had it narrowed down to about 10 families. Okay. So, we've got 10 families now, and I'm trying to figure out which family to choose. And I really didn't have like a gauge of like, okay, this is what I'm looking for before I choose this family. I was just kind of acting on wit, personal discretion, if you will. You know, we had it narrowed down to 10, and then we had it narrowed down to 5, and then we had it narrowed down to 3. And the family that we ended up choosing to win this giveaway was, he was a complete stranger to me. I didn't know who he was. And, you know, we chose them, we sat down with them over a video chat and just kind of went over the contract, because I just wanted to make sure we protected ourselves, right? Because I'm working with a stranger and just want to make sure like there's no risk of lawsuit over free photos, you know? And, you know, when we did that, it was great. Like, it was good. And he ended up reaching back out to me via text. Not even sure how he got my phone number, but he reached out to me via text and was like, hey man, like, I was just really impressed by the way that you walked us through kind of this contract thing, and just really impressed with your website. And he just said that I think he would be an excellent fit for my dad's company. And, you know, of course, my curiosity peaks at this point, because like we were kind of struggling financially and just thinking through, okay, like what job do I take, and how do I try to care for my family by working, you know, a different job or more jobs. And I learned a little bit more about the company, and, you know, I ended up getting this job, getting hired, and it was my first salary gig. And the salary gig was more than enough for us. And so I say all these things just to say, like, I am extremely grateful for the job that I have. It's challenging, but I am extremely grateful for it, because it came at the right time in a season where we were discouraged and we were just fighting for some clarity and fighting for what next. And so the job itself, hands down, I will die on the hill, was a clear act of mercy from the Lord. So yeah, I say all these things just to say that I am extremely thankful for it. I think where the tension is now for me is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And the answer is no. I want to be creating. I want to be building businesses with my family. I want my wife and kids to be a part of that, because I've just really been wrestling with the heartache of the disintegrated work-family life. I've just been wrestling with it, for months. Like, why is my work so disintegrated from my family life? I mean, like, really think, like, if you're a father, you're a husband and a father, like, really think about that. Think about how disintegrated, for the most part, not all the time, for the most part, how disintegrated our work life is and our family life is from one another. And for me, I recognized it after a few months of, like, yeah, like my life with my family and my work is very disintegrated, and I really don't think it should be that way. Like, my kids, they've been to where I work, and they've met everyone there, and, you know, they've seen where Daddy sits at work and all that stuff, but they have no idea what I do. They have no idea what I do, besides telling them the general surface level things. And it's like, okay, that's what Daddy's work does, you know, like, very surface level stuff. But the day in, day out, minute details of my work, like, my kids have no idea. My wife, you know, she hears how was your day thing, like I tell her about my day. And so, that's the extent of what she knows about my work. And that's it. But my heartbeat is for my wife and I, my kids and I, all of us together as a single unit, as a team, working together to accomplish a goal, right? Instead of daddy works really hard out of the home to provide for us, and so we're just the beneficiaries of daddy's 9 to 5, and that's it. But what I am arguing and what I am saying is that I think that the family should be working together and building something together. This just goes back to my point. My son helps me build this, and we're going to sell it, right? Like that's a sweet gift for me as a father. It's a sweet gift for my son, hopefully, Lord willing, someday, knowing how to work with his hands. But I could literally go 40 years of my life sitting at a desk, and my kids would never learn anything about work from me other than daddy leaves the house. Like, I've just been sitting with that, and it just makes no sense to me. It literally makes no sense to me. I don't know if I'm missing something. I don't know if I'm looking at this from the wrong angle. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't sit well with me. Especially when my greatest calling in life is to be a father, to be a husband and a father. That is my greatest calling in life, hands down, period. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. So what do I do? What do I do with that, right? What do I do with that? Well, I take my gifts that the Lord has given me, and I try to build something different. I think it's as plain as simple as that. As I'm trying to finish up this bench before I have to shut all this down and go to work, there's a better way. There's a better way, and I'm praying for it, and I'm working toward it, because it's one thing to complain about this and do absolutely nothing, and it's another thing to feel the tension and the weight and the burden and start to say, okay, what can I do? What can I do to see this vision that I have for my family and my work come to life? I don't know if anyone else is feeling this way, but I want to escape my 9 to 5. And so that's what I'm working toward. That's what I'm working toward. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm doing YouTube, because I want to be a full-time creator. I want to be a full-time entrepreneur, and I want to be doing all of these things in the presence of my family, and not only in the presence of them, but also doing it with them, so that they can take it and do what they want with it, and not only get to be the beneficiaries of it, but also be on the team. It's been my heartbeat. It's been my heartbeat, and quite frankly, I'm just tired of putting my gifts on the shelf in the name of, you just got to be doing what you're supposed to be doing, you know? You got to do what's safe. You got to do what everyone else is doing, which is working, paying bills, and waiting for the weekend. It's not the life I want. So that's all I got. if I stay on this camera, I'll keep rambling. The Lord bless you and keep you.